The rip was loud enough to slice through the crystal-lit ballroom, a violent tearing sound that made time stumble, and in that single breathless second, every eye turned toward a woman standing frozen in shock, her uniform torn, her dignity hanging by a thread she could no longer hold together. The woman's name was Mara Elwyn, and in that moment, the polished marble floor beneath her feet felt colder than anything she had ever known. Sunlight poured in through towering windows, bouncing off chandeliers and gold-trimmed walls, making the room glow with wealth and celebration. Yet inside Mara, something collapsed quietly. She had come to the Hartwell Foundation luncheon wearing a simple white service blouse and a navy apron, hair pulled back neatly, posture trained into invisibility. She was there to work, to serve, to stay unseen. She had learned long ago how to shrink herself in rooms that were not built for people like her. Across from her stood Vivian Cross, the CEO's girlfriend, draped in a pale blush designer dress that matched the sharpness in her eyes. Vivian had arrived with laughter too loud for the room and confidence sharpened by privilege, the kind that believed the world would always move aside. When she mistook Mara for someone disposable, it had not been an accident. It had been instinct. Mara's life had taught her caution. Raised in a coastal town battered by storms and layoffs, she had learned early how quickly stability could vanish. Her mother had worked 2 jobs and still come home exhausted, hands cracked, hope thinning year by year. Mara carried that memory everywhere, especially into places like this ballroom, where wealth felt unreal and fragile people were expected to smile while holding it up. She told herself this was just another shift, another few hours to endure. She did not expect humiliation to arrive so suddenly or so publicly. The rip had come after a shove, after Vivian's hand grabbed fabric with careless force, driven by annoyance rather than reason. The room gasped. Some guests looked away, embarrassed by proximity to cruelty. Others stared, hungry for spectacle. Mara felt heat rush to her face, her breath shortening as her hands instinctively moved to hold together what was left of her uniform. Her thoughts scattered, tumbling into memories of past humiliations she thought she had buried. The kind that teaches you silence is safer than truth. In the stunned hush that followed, the daylight seemed harsher, exposing every reaction. At the far end of the room, a man stood very still. His tailored charcoal suit blended seamlessly into the wealth around him, but his eyes were fixed on Mara with an intensity that did not belong to a stranger. His name was Rowan Vale, though almost no one here knew that. To them, he was simply another invited guest, quiet, observant, unremarkable. To Mara, he was something else entirely, something she had built her life around in private. Rowan had grown up in the same town as Mara, though their paths had crossed only briefly back then. His family had lost everything during an economic collapse, and he had left with nothing but stubborn resolve and a mind wired for systems and risk. Years later, through relentless work and careful choices, he had become one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. But wealth had never softened him. It had only sharpened his sense of justice, especially toward cruelty dressed as confidence. Mara had met Rowan again years later under circumstances neither of them talked about much. Their connection had grown quietly, away from cameras and expectations. They had married in secret, not out of shame, but out of a shared desire to keep something pure in a world that consumed everything it touched. Mara had chosen to continue working under a different name, needing to feel grounded, needing to know she was more than someone's wife. Rowan had respected that, even when it pained him to watch her choose struggle over comfort. As the room held its breath, this is where we pause for a moment. If you are watching Pure Kindness and you believe in hope, compassion, and second chances, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stories like this exist because people still believe cruelty does not get the final word. Vivian's confidence wavered when she realized the attention had not turned away as she expected. The CEO, Julian Cross, stood nearby, his expression unreadable, torn between damage control and discomfort. Vivian felt the room shifting, though she did not yet understand why. She tossed her hair, dismissive, as if the incident were beneath explanation. Mara, meanwhile, felt the weight of old instincts urging her to apologize, to retreat, to make herself smaller so the world could continue uninterrupted. But Rowan was already moving. Each step he took across the ballroom seemed to pull gravity with it. Conversations died mid-breath. Glasses paused halfway to lips. The sunlight caught his face as he stepped into view, revealing an expression carved from restraint rather than rage. He removed his suit jacket slowly and placed it around Mara's shoulders, his hands steady, protective, familiar. The warmth of the fabric and the certainty of his presence broke something open inside her. Tears threatened, not from shame, but from relief. Rowan stood beside her, not in front of her, not behind her. With her. That alone sent a ripple through the room. Vivian's confusion sharpened into irritation. She watched the interaction, trying to place it, to diminish it. But then she saw the way Mara's posture changed, the way she leaned ever so slightly toward the man beside her, trusting. Recognition dawned too late. Rowan's reputation traveled faster than gossip once his name was spoken. The realization hit the room like a silent explosion. The quiet guest was not just wealthy. He was untouchable. And the woman whose dress had been torn was not invisible. She was his wife. The humiliation Vivian had inflicted reversed direction with brutal speed. Her face drained of color as understanding settled in. Julian Cross felt the room tilt against him, his career flashing before his eyes in a series of fragile calculations. The power dynamics that had seemed so permanent moments ago rearranged themselves without mercy. Mara's heart pounded, not with triumph, but with grief. She saw herself reflected in the stunned faces around her, saw how easily respect was granted only when power stood beside her. It hurt in ways she had not anticipated. Rowan sensed it, his presence a quiet anchor as the room buzzed with restrained chaos. Security arrived, not with force, but with deference. Apologies were offered too late to mean anything. The event continued in theory, but something fundamental had cracked. Daylight still streamed in, chandeliers still glittered, but the illusion of invincibility had shattered. Later, away from the noise, Mara stood near a window overlooking the city. The afternoon sun painted the skyline in warm golds and soft blues. She thought about the girl she had been, the woman she had become, and the cost of both. Rowan stood beside her, not speaking, understanding that healing sometimes required silence. This story is nearing its end, and before the final moments unfold, if this journey has touched your heart even a little, please support Pure Kindness by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support helps these stories reach people who need them most. As the room slowly emptied, Mara felt something shift within her. Not revenge, not satisfaction, but clarity. She realized she no longer needed to test herself through suffering to prove her worth. Strength did not come from endurance alone. It came from choosing dignity, from allowing herself to be seen and protected without guilt. Right before we close, we would love to hear from you. Please comment below and share what this story made you feel or what moment stayed with you the most. The day ended quietly, the way powerful moments often do. As Mara and Rowan stepped out into the sunlit street, the city humming around them, she felt lighter than she had in years. Not because justice had been served, but because compassion had stood its ground. The world would not change overnight, but in that ballroom, under crystal lights and watchful eyes, one truth had been made undeniable. Kindness does not require permission, and dignity is not something anyone gets to tear away.